We so appreciate seeing you in person and enjoying time with you, particularly right now, when freedom of speech is a looming question. How does HPR regard that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a mission of providing factual information to our audience and doing it in a way that allows us to spend a little bit more time on a subject. We don't do sound bites. We don't just shout things out over the radio. We have the ability to go into a topic freely and take time to discuss it. And it's an important role that we have. Government needs to be managed and controlled by the free press. And it is the free press that holds the government accountable. And it's for an important part of our mission as journalists and as a public radio station, especially when we're so accountable to our community, right? Because we don't get any state money. We get very little federal money. So they don't get to tell us what to do. 95% of our funding comes directly from the community here in Hawaii. So we're accountable right to our community.
One of the things that I love about HPR is that there are stories. You do take the time, and it is a relationship.
Yeah, we're uniquely local too, right? So community is part of our mission statement. It's part of our vision statement. Connecting the community is an important part of what we do. 30% of our schedule is locally hosted or produced. So the conversation that airs Monday through Friday with Catherine Cruz is a deep, deep dive into local issues. You get to hear voices, not just from Honolulu, but from all of the neighbor islands talking about things that are important to our community. Our reporter, Sku'uwehi Hiririshi, a native Hawaiian speaker, will go and do interviews in Hawaiian and over-translate them on the radio. We have a local produced Hawaiian music program, Kanekapila Sunday. So those types of things connect us to our community, which is uniquely different from other communities on the mainland. And for us, that's a very important role.
And it gives freedom of expression.
Yeah, absolutely. When people call into our talk program, there's no censorship. It's live. So people get to really engage in the way they want to. And that is also a very important aspect of free speech. We don't want to regulate what people have to say, but if someone goes way off kilter and it goes beyond the norms of our community or the guidelines of the FCC, we might put a stop to that. But that doesn't mean that we're violating their freedom of speech, because they can go and have that conversation somewhere else.
What are the boundaries?
Yeah, it's very, the boundaries have really shifted over the last couple of years, right? And what's happened is with the increase of cable talk programs, opinion, commentary programs, we have seen an escalation of issues that are dominated by the right and the left. And so a trick that I have, that I share with friends who kind of live in one of the bubbles, whether it's on the right or the left, is when news breaks, and go to the extreme right channel and see how they're presenting the news on their website. Let's put Fox in that bucket. And then go to the extreme left, like MSNBC, and see how they're covering the topic. And if they are two polar opposites of each other, something is not right. So then you go to a source that you can really trust. And those sources are like AP News, Reuters, BBC, and National Public Radio. And I think once you're able to do that and see the wide range of how a topic is covered, that you're able then to see, okay, that's not right. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. And typically in the middle is the right place to be.
So this strategy you're talking about requires, however, someone actually wanting to learn.
Right. And the problem is now a lot of people live in a news bubble. So they're getting the news inside of a bubble from friends and sources that don't contradict how they feel. And so our citizens have to get uncomfortable and get out of that bubble. They have to want to do it, right? If they don't want to do it, they're going to be in that bubble forever, and that's the only source that they're going to have. But they have to take the initiative to say, let me peek out of the bubble for just one moment, see how the other community population is covering the story. And if they do that, maybe they'll get a sense that their reality in that bubble is not reality at all, that there's something else happening outside of that bubble.
Well, and that's an interesting perspective, because people usually do not want suffering.
Right.
They will avoid suffering, even if it means that they're not that happy,
Right.
as opposed to change, which is why HPR is so delightful,
Right.
because you have music and stories
Exactly,
in addition
right.
to the facts.
Right. So we have one stream that's all classical music, and during the election season and COVID, where people were just up to here with the news, they had it in oases to go to on
Yes.
HPR2, knowing they could always come back to HPR1, which is our all news station. But it is an important role, and if we weren't doing our job correctly, we would not be raising the money that we're able to raise here in this community, right? Because our measurement is, if we're doing our job well, not only do we have a lot of listeners, we have the third most listened to radio station in the state of Hawaii, but people are giving us freely their money. We don't know who they are. We don't have a turnstile where people walk in and say, here's the money. Voluntarily, they listen to the radio and they contribute, and they do it because they value the work that we do, and it's important work.
So along those lines, what's a parting message for the audience?
I think the parting message is freedom of speech is the cornerstone of our society. Freedom of the press is a cornerstone of our society, but it's not a one-way street. Our community, our citizens have to do their part too to get a better understanding of what is accurate and what's factual, and step out of their bubble to learn more.
Well, thank you very much for stepping out of your bubble today and coming into our bubble. We appreciate you very much.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me.
How enjoyable to converse with José Fajardo, President and General Manager of HPR.